Greetings, this is a very strange Aeon. Welcome to my video. Let me start by giving my thoughts on Elementalist. Okay, enough of that. Elementalists have a reputation for high complexity and a high skill ceiling and floor. They also have a reputation for being incredibly squishy. As a general rule, Elementalists fall into two categories. Those who spend their entire time in downstate and those who can't bloody hit and then will murder me in World v World, and I have utterly no idea how they did it. I will be honest, when playing Elementalist, I am the former. They cannot weapon swap in a conventional sense, but instead flip between 4 different elements, all of which do slightly different things. Each element shares a certain identity, but necessarily always consistent between the weapons. For example, water tends to be healing orientated, and earth tends to be defensive and condition damage orientated, and then you go over to spear and they all just do power. If you're prepared to put in the work for Elementalist, it can be an incredibly powerful option, but if you're not, don't feel too bad about just giving this one a miss. So let's talk about their specialties. Tempest. Tempest has the reputation of being the lowest skill ceiling and floor for the Elementalist, although still all things relative. Its mechanics work by overloading an element. After you stay in the element for a long enough time, you get the ability to use your element to activate a powerful ability. This generally slows down their rotation through the elements, making them a bit easier to cope with, and generally less of a headache. They also have a reputation of being the most supporting-orientated of the Elementalists. Tempest gains access to Warhorn, which is generally a buff-orientated weapon, playing into Tempest's more supporting roles if it wants to play like that. Weaver. Remember how I screamed about Elementalist? Yeah, Weaver's worse. Rather than screaming, this is more like sobbing on the ground, crying, begging for mercy class. Weaver uses 2 elements at once, one in each hand basically. As it swaps elements, the one in its offhand goes to its main hand, its offhand gains the new element you selected. Its free move on any weapon set is actually a combo move combining both of the elements you've utilized. This means it has a lot of moves, a lot of rotation, and a lot of complexity. If you thought the normal Elementalist was bad, the Weaver is just worse. Weaver is almost a pure damage-oriented class, with a very high skill ceiling and floor even by Elementalist standards. People who are good at Weaver can put out a truly ludicrous amount of damage, but the class doesn't really offer anything else. There's very little utility and even very little crowd control. Generally, Weavers kill, and that's it. But if you're good at it, they can be very, very good at it. And if you're not good at it, you can be on the floor with the other Elementalists and me. Weaver adds sword, a melee weapon. That's all I'm prepared to say for certain about anything to do with Weaver. Catalyst. Catalyst is one of the 2 specializations I am going to strongly suggest you learn Guild Wars 2's combo system for, because its class is strongly built around it. Catalyst gains the ability to deploy Jade Orbs. You slowly generate energy to put out these orbs, and you put one out depending on your element with slightly different effects. These put out a combo field that you can then use to generate other effects. Catalyst is built around combos. To give the short of it, combos work by putting out a field and then using an ability that will trigger that field to cause various different effects, be it an enhancement to your attack or buff your surroundings. The exact effect of this varies depending on what field type you put out and what type of combo finisher you've used. I don't want to go into too much detail on this here, but I'd recommend you look it up if you play a Catalyst. Catalyst generally plays as a combination of offensive and buffing. It doesn't tend to play healing or support orientated, although I think that was previously an option. Instead, it tends to play a more offensive character who grants some utility. I generally say Catalyst is the middle of the ground in terms of Elementalist, though this still probably puts as some of the highest skill category characters in the game, especially if you're not too familiar with the combo system. Catalyst grants access to Hammer, which is mostly a 2-handed melee weapon. Notably, its free ability creates a spinning hammer around you. You may ask in what element? All the elements. You can build up multiple of these hammers and then throw them all at once by flipping through the various elements. And as a final word for Elementalist, don't.